Logos, the power to bend, break, create, and destroy. Are we really living? Instead of living dHARMaly, living life from the heart and based on harmony with the Tao, aka the natural order of things, aka God's will, we have been living dHARMaly, living life from the lower chakras based upon separation, struggle, and karma. Logos, the vessel that carries God's essence. In the Matrix, Neo, who represents Christ, takes the vessel called Logos to meet the source. Of course, the source is God. This is one of those movies that I call reflectives from the collective. They're reflecting back the collective consciousness, things that we need to see or be aware of. So sometimes when you go to a movie or hear a radio song, when you hear it, it perfectly fits into where your consciousness is. So these are reflecting information back to us, and Matrix, for me, is a big movie that does that. Sangreal is another name for the Holy Grail. Of course, the Holy Grail is the vessel of Christ's blood, Christ's energy and life essence. So if you play with the word Sangreal, you get the real song. And the universe, if you break down the word the universe, you get one song. So Sangreal, the Holy Grail, is the frequency that you need to be in tune with the universe, the one song. And here's a little video that comes from the movie Mind Walk, that explains the harmony aspect of the universe. And again, this is the movie Mind Walk.
Now, this vision of a universe arranged in harmonies of sounds and relations is no new discovery. Today, physicists are simply proving that what we call an object, an atom, a molecule, a particle, is only an approximation, a metaphor. At the subatomic level, it dissolves into a series of interconnections, like chords of music. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but there are boundaries, aren't there? I mean, between you and me, for instance. We are two separate bodies, aren't we? That's not an illusion.
At the subatomic level, there is a continual exchange of matter and energy between my hand and this wood, between the wood and the air, and even between you and me. I mean a real exchange of photons and electrons. Ultimately, whether we like it or not, we're all part of one inseparable web of relationships.
I put that movie clip in here because I thought that it fit perfectly with the whole concept that the universe is a song. When our vibrations are in the right accordance, we are a vessel or instrument of God. What do you do when you realize, see the root cause of an experience you prefer to not have or repeat? Do you focus on the resolution, or do you focus on the issue? And the issue is you, which according to quantum physics means you will get more of the issue if you focus on it. I'm always hearing New Age people and people trying to focus on changing the world, and I've kind of toyed with this concept back and forth that these guys actually help to create or hold in place the negative things based on quantum physics. I believe all these people are well-intentioned, but I do think people like David Icke and Alex Jones, who are working to try to change what's happening on the world, they're trying to change it through the physical channels, which are based in limitation. There's laws that you have to follow if you try to do something through the physical way. When David Icke is always talking about consciousness, if you focus on the consciousness and really start to change things there, then the physical follows suit. First there's energy, consciousness, then the physical. Another way I look at creating is if you see create, eat is in the middle. So what you dine on, and you see in the middle the word dine is in, what you dine on, let into your mind and body, is what you create. So it's really important to decide when not to watch certain things, hear things, or read things over and over, because they're going to tune you into certain experiences. The tricky part to changing reality is to be able to see what is holding the energy in a certain pattern, which is bringing discomfort physically, emotionally, mentally, and or energetically, and then turn from it on all levels. To even speak of the problem attaches you to it. And this may be hard to understand, And this is the concept I've been toying with back and forth. Do you see a problem, then work on it, or do you see a problem and then focus solely on the solution, not worrying about trying to figure out how to fix it? So I'll break it down into this. Seeing the problem. Imagine your problem as Medusa. The world reflects your problems to you through this multi-layered quantum hologram. In seeing the reflection, you can begin to move away from the pattern, but if you choose to continually look at the problem, you'll become stone. In other words, if you continually look at the issue, it's going to freeze you in your tracks, and you may not be able to move forward out of it. And then making a change. When I think about making a change, this reminds me of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and only from the concept that, when we start to walk away from something or to change, the last thing you want to do is turn back. Because if you turn back, it stops you. And turning back is another example of looking at where you're coming from, not where you're going. So our temptation is to look at what's wrong as opposed to just the sole solution and let everything fall in place. This is what the talk about today is about, is getting back to focusing solely on the solution and using the LOGOS as one of the many ways to tune into the solution. This little clip here is going to show or reflect what I'm talking about when I talk about quantum hologram. I kid about with the word hologram as if God is asking us to holla back. And when you really understand the physical world, based on quantum mechanics and things that are coming out, is that the world is empty. Most of the world, 99% of the world, is empty space. So this little clip here, again from the movie Mind Walk, will give a good representation of what I'm talking about here, about empty space being what reality is based upon.
What's an atom? Well, Newton thought it was small, solid particles. But that's not what scientists saw when they observed atoms for the first time. What they saw was totally unexpected and shocking.
You mean when they discovered that atoms were made up of even smaller particles, a nucleus with electrons whirling around it?
Not only that, they were moving in relatively vast regions of empty space. That's what shocked the scientists up. Atoms consist mainly of empty space.
What does that mean, vast regions of empty space? Atoms are tiny.
Yes, they are. This is what's so hard to visualize. See, the size of atoms is so far removed from our ordinary sense of scale and proportion that it's extremely hard to get a feeling for the relative sizes and distances of their particles. Ask yourself, how many atoms are there in an orange? Now, to answer this, you'll have to blow up the orange to a size where you can actually see the atoms. You'll have to blow up the orange until it's reached the size of the Earth. The atoms inside of it will then be the size of cherries. Myriads of cherries tightly packed into an orange the size of the Earth.
Wow, what an image. I'm serious. I was trying to shrink the Earth orange back down to the size of an orange and imagine all those cherries whizzing around inside of it. Made me dizzy. This is a dangerous height to be dizzy at. But okay, you say that the atom is the size of a cherry and that in that cherry atom there's all this empty space. Well, what about the nucleus? There is a nucleus in there, right? I mean, how big is that? That's where we're going here, isn't it?
Invisible is the answer. If we blow up the atom to the size of a football, the nucleus would still be invisible. If we blow up the atom to the size of a sphere that would fit into this room here, the nucleus would still be invisible.
What if you blew it up to the size of this island, to the size of the rock we're standing on?
Okay. We would blow the atom, the cherry, up to the size of this island. Okay, then the nucleus would be the size of a small pebble. Something like that. And the electrons would be much smaller still. We would have to look for them all the way down there at the edge of the island. And the whole space in between would be empty.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's weird. That's even weirder than poetry.
So what you're saying is that if there were a sphere large enough to contain this whole island, what it would actually consist of is a pebble and a few grains of sand. That's all this huge sphere contains. In other words, nothing. It's empty. But if this rock is made up of spheres like that, then what makes it so solid? Why can't I pass my hand through it? Why don't we fall through it?
Yeah, why don't we fall through everything? Why doesn't everything fall through everything?
Well, you see, this is the obvious question that physicists had to.
So, I really like that clip. It really explains things, and I saw that years ago, and it's always stuck with me. Just how emptiness, most things are made out of empty space. I was meditating on this recently, and I got this image that came to me that kind of explains more of the empty space. We're not going to go into this right now, but I saw like a huge web. So there's like this webbing structure that holds things together or allows things to change, and that webbing metamorphoses too. So what we consider empty space isn't really just empty. There are things there too, almost like a webbing matrix. So moving on to the hologram, it's all a hologram. This has been really hitting me this past year, is that everything I look at is a hologram. And what I mentioned earlier, hologram, meaning messages reflected in empty space. I see it this way. God is actually calling out to all of us, asking us to holler back, aka wake up to our true nature or true selves. You know, you're probably all aware of reflexology, hands and feet, and they talk about how the nerves end in the hands and the feet, reflecting different body parts, but really those are holograms. So when you're working with somebody's hands or feet, their reflexology, you're working on the hologram of the body. Same thing with iridology, the eyes, and with feng shui. Feng shui is a hologram of you, of the family matrix within the house. And beyond that, the country you're in, the world you're in, is also a reflection of that. So it's just embedded more and more aspects of this hologram over and over and over and over again. Speaking of holograms, what we're about to talk about next is, I ran into Hastings last week to, something just made me kind of go in there. I wanted to look at the magazine, so I was in there and I came across this Discover magazine I'm about to read from. And it's this month, it's June, actually it's coming month, June 2011. And on the front cover was black hole. Of course, anything with a black hole gets my attention because this group was started with the name of Black Hole Heart Group, meaning that we are or hold that black hole within ourselves. And I was thumbing through it and I found this interesting article called The Hidden Reality. So it got my attention. I'm not going to read all of it at this time, but I am going to read part of it. And then, of course, you can go get the magazine yourself and read the whole thing if you want to. Again, the title of this little article is The Hidden Reality. It's on page 32 of June 2011 Discover. And the byline is, could life on Earth be nothing more than a holographic movie of the real action now unfolding on a distant surface, one that surrounds us the way an event horizon encircles a black hole? By Brian Greene. Man, that's what I've been talking about for the last couple of months. This is him again. There was a time when the word universe meant all there is. Everything, the whole shebang. The notion of more than one universe, more than one everything would seemingly be a contradiction in terms. Yet, a range of theoretical developments has gradually quantified the interpretation of universe. The word's meaning now depends on context. Sometimes universe still connotes absolutely everything. Sometimes it refers only to those parts of everything that someone such as you or I could, in principle, have access to. Sometimes it applies to separate realms, ones that are partially or fully, temporarily or permanently inaccessible to us in this sense. The word regulates our universe to membership in a large, perhaps infinitely larger collection. So this word universe has given way to other terms that capture the wider canvas on which the totality of reality may be painted. Parallel worlds, parallel universes, or multi-universes, or alternate universes, or the metaverse, megaverse, or multiverse. They're all synonymous, and they're all among the words used to embrace not just our universe, but a spectrum of others that may be out there. The strangest version of all parallel universe proposals is one that emerged gradually over 30 years of theoretical study on the quantum properties of black holes. The work culminates in the last decade and suggests remarkably that all we experience is nothing but a holographic projection of processes taking place on some distant surface that surrounds us. I differ here a little bit, and I'll cover this in a second, because I don't think it's some distant aspect that's creating it. It's just us. Plato likened our view of the world to that of an ancient forebear watching shadows meandering across a dimly lit cave wall. And this is what you see up on the screen right now. And jumping from the book to the screen, Plato's allegory of the cave is Maya. That's another name for illusionary world. So you can see this person is standing at the front of a cave and looking back at the cave, and he would see his reflection or an image. And what's being said here is that what we see as reality is really something, just a reflection of something bigger and larger. So what I kind of did with the picture is imagine, enlightenment shining light on something. If you can take a light and then shine it into the cave, then it illuminates what the illusion was. It illuminates what was really going on to begin with. And when you can bring enlightenment or awareness to the illusion, you become free. You're no longer stuck in a dream. You wake up and you have power to play in the dream, if you will. Back to the Discover magazine. He imagined our perceptions to be but a faint inkling of a far richer reality that flickers beyond reach. 2 millennia later, Plato's cave may be more than a metaphor. To turn his suggestion on its head, reality, not its mere shadow, may take place on a distant boundary surface, while everything we witness in the 3 common spatial dimensions is a projection of that faraway unfolding. Reality, that is, may be akin to a hologram, or really a holographic movie, which is super interesting. Continuing Discover. Think of any region of space, such as the room in which you're reading. Imagine that whatever happens in the region amounts to information processing. Information regarding how things are right now is transformed by laws of physics into information regarding how they will be in a second or a minute or an hour later. In other words, what's going to happen in the future is based on the information in this moment. Since the physical processes we witness, as well as those which were governed seemingly take place within the region, it's natural to expect that the information those processes carry is also found within the region. In translation there is we tend to think what's happening to us is based on what's out there in the world, when the holographic view is that it's a projection of something else. And in this Discover magazine, they're talking about the projection coming from an entirely different place. I'm saying that the projection is coming from within each one of us. We're collectively projecting this movie we call reality. Back to the magazine. But for black holes, we found that the link between information and surface area goes beyond mere numerical accounting. There's a concrete sense in which information is stored on their surface. Physicists Leonard Susskind and Gerald Haupt stressed that the lesson should be general, since the information required to describe physical phenomenon within any given region of space can be fully encoded by data on the surface that surrounds the region. Then there's reason to think that the surface is where the fundamental physical process actually happens. Our familiar three-dimensional reality, these bold thinkers suggest, would then be linked to a holographic projection of those distant two-dimensional physical processes. Now, I'm with them a little bit there, but I vary when it comes to where I think the projection is coming from. In other words, I know we're living a reality, but what is the projector to the movie, so to speak? And I believe that is actually within ourselves. Looking at this next slide, the quantum hologram, the event horizon equals the events on your horizon. What is coming your way? And if you look over here to the left, you see that the event horizon, if you imagine the crown chakra being like a black hole, the event horizon is that crown chakra rim, what was depicted biblically as the halo. So I believe what we're doing is we're projecting from our own, inside our own energy onto this toroidal field, this round donut-shaped field around us. So basically we're projecting from inside of ourselves, and which is pretty fascinating to me. And then on the right here you see the many different aspects of the hologram. We have 5 fingers, 5 toes. We have 4 limbs and a head. That makes a 5 also. The yin and the yang are divided into the 5 elements, and it goes on and on and on. Nested yin and yang for eternity. It's everywhere. Yin and yang to some degree. Even in the middle of our galaxy is a black hole, and then that's just pulling energy in. And then outside, yang, the white light, is going out. So that hologram is so awesomely embedded in every single thing in the universe, multiverse. This holographic field around us, or this auric field, got me to thinking about Carlos Castaneda's and him talking about the auric field as a luminous egg. And here you can see on this slide this representation of this auric field around the body, which is basically the toroidal field. And imagine being inside an egg and projecting from your consciousness onto the wall of the egg, if you will. That's the holographic projection, but it comes from inside of us, and we collectively play this together. And I'm just going to read you what some information that I got based on the luminous egg. In the subtle body in Western tradition, Gnostic scholar G.R.S. Mead cites the lost writings of Isidorus, the husband of Hypatia, and one of the last Gnostics who taught at the mystery school, the Museum, in Alexandria. Isidorus' original work is lost, but it was paraphrased by another writer, Demisius. A few faint indications of his teaching can be surmised. Isidorus is said to have described the Aguideus, the golden aura, I don't know that I said that quite right, comparable to the luminous egg of Castaneda. The nature and operation of the Aguideus, also called the auric egg, was one of the deepest secrets of the mysteries. Apparently, a lost treatise of Isidorus stated that the Aguideus surrounds the human being like an oval membrane in such a way that the physical body floats in the oval. This is precisely how Castaneda describes the luminous egg. So those two stories, ancient information, ties in with what Carlos was talking about. This next image here talks about the assemblage point, which is actually the heart, which I call the Holy Grail, in the middle of this toroidal field. And this slide you see on the right, you see that toroidal field, and you see how they call the assemblage point where the heart is. And based on Carlos's work and a few others, I'm going to read this information on the left. What directs us to align certain patterns of energy is intent, which is the force that the infinite uses to create and manifest everything in the universe. Every being in the universe aligns these patterns of light as directed by the infinite, God, if you will. The assemblage point is that area on the luminous egg where the energetic patterns of light that our body is made of intersects with the energetic patterns of light of the greater universe. As a result of this alignment, perception occurs. So again, if you can be in the heart, which is the Holy Grail, which is the one song, you're in the right vibration, you link up to God consciousness, some might call that Christ consciousness. When you link into that, you have the ability to then project the reality that you want to experience. I believe this is how Jesus was able to heal others. He was able to see and project onto them a different way of being, which is another level. I mean, I think we're working to that level, but right now we're talking about this and playing with it. But of course, Christ was one of the examples of, I consider, one of these beings that had learned and transformed himself completely. The changing views equals changing worlds. Toltecs don't believe in a, quote, physical world. Instead, the world you perceive as reality is your self-reflection, which is really interesting. What we hold about ourselves is what's reflected out onto this reality. And they talk about it being reflected on the round walls of your luminous egg. Your self-reflection is just your life mantra. Basically, your thoughts, your agreements that the world is made up of solid objects, etc. Just how you think the world is. No right way or wrong way. In this way, the world can be made to behave more to how you think it is, as opposed to the uncertainty that's really out there waiting for you. And uncertainty we're about to cover in a second. You know, we've created all these laws to make, you know, understandings of gravity and things like that to understand our universe, but at the same time we've limited our consciousness by the very concepts that we needed to make things make sense. So we've enslaved ourselves with concepts. We've basically used the mind to enslave ourselves. The key point here is your assemblage point moves beyond others' ability to perceive, then you disappear from their view. And what it's saying here is if you rise above everybody else's limited ability to perceive certain things, in essence, you're no longer in the reality that limited consciousness resides in. So in a way, that's ascension. You can look at another example of that as angels and aliens and things like that. Mastered, you could tune into whatever reality and whatever level you wanted. So gaining control of your energy is basically the master tuning dial, and you can tune into whatever you want to. There is a concept of the assemblage point, the point where awareness is perceived on your luminous egg. As the point moves across the luminous egg, different possibilities become perceivable. And what we've done is we've let all these rules and everything limit us and lock us into limited abilities or possibilities. We've got to move into the point where more and more things are probable instead of, you know, impossible. And I've played with the word impossible, and if you break it apart, it actually is I'm possible. So the impossible is an anagram for I'm possible, meaning anything is possible. I always love movies because I do believe they're the reflectives of the collective. And to make a point about this projection of self, I'm going to go to the Matrix, where they talk about a residual self. Residual self-image equals default unconscious mental projections, what I kind of term dump, as in this place is a dump. So if we're projecting unconscious negative mental issues about ourselves and about the world, that's exactly what we help create. What we believe about ourselves and the world around us, consciously and subconsciously, is what we create and experience. We create by default, by what was put into our minds, what we swallowed by parents, teachers, preachers, peers, and ourselves. So we default create all the time, based on what other people feed us. And it's not the way to live life, I don't think. It's what I term passing the poisonous apple. You know, using the example of Adam and Eve, it's like they ate from this apple of what? The knowledge of good and bad. Judgment. Knowledge of good and bad. That's the concept of judgment. Once they swallowed that, we've been passing that on from parent to child, society to child forever. And that's why we don't tend to shift and grow, because we're fed all these poisonous concepts, just like eating a poisonous apple. And this is downright scary, because what's in the subconscious is the unknown. And if the unknown in our subconscious is running the show, then we're going around letting things happen to us without taking control. And then we get into another aspect, which I'm going to go to in a second. But let me show this little clip here that's going to kind of bring in this whole concept of what I'm talking about, residual self. And this is from the very first movie, The Matrix.
You wanted to know what the Matrix is, Neo? Trinity? Try to relax. This will feel a little weird. This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today. Welcome to the desert of the real.
So I thought that was kind of a neat little clip. Neo showed up in the Matrix based on what he or how he perceived himself. And we do that all the time. I say some, and I'm still working on bridging my consciousness. I would say that all of our issues are based on mental patterns, negative mostly. But the world, ourselves included, is made up of these projections, these ideas, beliefs, that we have about ourselves and the world. We create it collectively. So now we've got to move into the realm of things being more possible.